Hello and welcome again. Nice to see you. I'm very happy that we are starting the next webinar. We are here on each Wednesday to hear from social entrepreneurs and also their teams from around the world about timely topics and solutions. And my name is Piotr Kołodziej. I'm working at Ashoka Poland and also at Hello Europe program, supporting social entrepreneurs and leaders with migration background in scaling their solutions. And I'm originally from Poland, very connected to the situation which we are facing right now in my country. We are very happy to have many of you joining today from Ashoka Global Community, and also a big welcome for those who join from Agata Teutsch community. Agata Teutsch is our guest today, and hello Agata as well. I'm very happy that we can have this conversation today with you. We will have today 30 minutes and we'll be hearing from Agata about how to build a gender equal world in time of crisis. But when we get started a bit before, there are a few points of the housekeeping. So first of all, we love hearing from you as we move along. So please feel free, completely free, to drop your questions to Q&A. And at the end of the meeting, or in the second half of the meeting, we'll have time to answer to your question. If you would like to use captioning, you need to select the 3 dots that say more at the bottom of the corner on the Zoom screen, and then select show subtitles. And the last very important thing, today's session is powered by Bayersdorf as a part of our partnership fostering social innovation and supporting 5 social entrepreneurs who address the female empowerment topics in the COVID-19 crisis and beyond. And also this series of webinars, of meetings, conversations are in line with the Bayersdorf strategy of empowering girls and to build an inclusive society. Okay, so now we can start and we can move to our guest. So we have Agata Teutsch today. Agata focuses on empowerment, courage, independent thinking, and solidarity for women and girls, so that they power to liberate themselves, and also giving them tools to resist manipulation, violence, and discrimination. Agata is our Ashoka Fellow, and for the more than 20 years, she has been addressing the challenges by building networks of women in Poland and Eastern Europe that mainstream anti-discrimination guidelines and practices across schools, workplaces, and communities. Agata, it's very nice to see you and hear you and be with you today. So maybe we can start with the first question, like a bit framing the discussion, because as we have the topic of building a gender equal world in the time of crisis, I would like to ask you at the beginning, because you have been involved since the beginning of the current crisis in Poland, or maybe like refugee situation, and the crisis, humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, in addressing gender-based violence. Can you tell us, how do you see the situation on the ground? What is happening right now, of course, in relation to women and girls?
Mm-hmm. Hi, first of all, I would like to thank you, Ashoka and Bayersdorf, for inviting me, and I hope this our meeting is also a chance for me to spread the mission ideas of our work, and because while I'm thinking about being a change maker, this is extremely important not to stay alone with your own ideas, with your own messages and strategies to change the world. So I think this is what makes us change makers, is to be heard, is to be seen, and to be able to send a message and to influence our communities, our policies, our world. So answering your question, you know, every war is a situation of a crisis, mostly for women and kids and people who experience exclusion and discrimination based on their race, level of ability, or their ethnic origin. And this time, the situation is the same as always. Women and kids, children and people from LGBT community, from different minorities, ethnic or national minorities, they experience forced migration, or the need to flee from the country, to leave their homes, their jobs, their schools, they are extremely exposed to violence and discrimination on their way to the place where to safer places, and they are exposed to sexual violence, economic violence, exploitation, exclusion. They lose the world they were used to live in. And this is what, and maybe what is very important to say now is that after the attack on Ukraine, already more than 4 million of people left Ukraine, and 95% of those people are women and kids. So if we are talking about consequences of the war, we can really clearly see what kind of influence and how big the influence is on women and kids, mostly women and kids, but not only. And the answer of, now we have actually quite big, intensive answer of feminist movement, women's organization in those countries, in neighbor countries like Poland, Moldova, also Slovakia, and we try cooperate to find the best solutions to create safer spaces for women and kids, and to reach them with the information about their rights and the possibilities to have psychological, legal support, economical support. And what is also important, especially for us, is that we try to engage those who are ready to be engaged, those who are fleeing from Ukraine. We try to engage them in creating those solutions, because as we maybe all know, this is not an unusual situation, and we don't know the realities and challenges those people face.
Thank you, Agata. I think that this work is very important, and we are thinking about empowering others to do the change, which is brilliant in my opinion, very needed in Poland. And also in the region, if you can please recall, when we come to the past a bit, and if you can recall what brought you to this work originally, because you are working in this field for 20 years. So what you see in the system, what was broken basically, which makes you act?
Actually, when I am thinking about my engagement, officially is more than 20 years, but I think the beginning was when I was born as a woman, when I realized also that, or I experienced also, different kinds of homophobia in not only in Poland but also when I realized that different parts of my identity influence very much my position in the society, or maybe the society is constructed in a way where we experience some privileges or some discrimination or violence because who we are. And if we are talking about what is broken in the system, in my opinion, what is broken is that the system is of social relationships or relationships between groups of people, between nations, is that that those relationships are built on relation of domination and subordination, that some values are valued more, some people are valued more, and some voices are valued more than the others. And the problem is that people from excluded groups, from minorities, their perspectives, their views, their voices are absent in the process of shaping all our social, economic relationships or our views on security. And for example, I'm sure that we really lack the perspective of women in the process of creating security policies and defining what the security is. And now we can see the glorification of militarism, of a huge militarization of all relations between people and countries. And as we know from many researchers, where is the war, or where we have the situation that people have the weapon, this is the most dangerous situation for kids and women. So this is not an answer. If we are talking about security, militarization, weapon are not an answer. So the problem is that we have a world built on inequalities and exploitation, and we do not have the perspectives and voices of more than a half year taken into account in creating policies, strategies, and solutions.
Thank you. To go a bit deeper, because we talked about when you started and also what you see is broken in the system. And in the region, since 2019, we have been facing many crises. The global crisis, health crisis, it was not only in Poland, but elsewhere as well, but also the war in Ukraine, and Poland is very impacted as well with the refugee movement, especially women and children, as you said at the beginning. So if you can tell us how your work have changed compared to the work which you have been doing before the crises and which you are doing right now.
Maybe first I would like to say that we are still on on different crises, and the war in Ukraine is the the closest one to Poland. But as activists, we are aware that that we are experiencing wars all the time in different parts of the world, and we are trying to also as a feminist movement, we are trying to influence policies, international relations, and the ways of intervention in a way which will be more helpful or more effective in answering the people's needs in this context. But if you are asking how my work changed, first maybe what we need to say is that we in Autonomia Foundation, which is my organization, we are focused on primary prevention, emancipation and empowerment of women and girls and people who define themselves as women and girls, and people from other minorities. And at the beginning of the war, at the beginning of COVID crisis also, we had a thought that maybe we should leave what we do, and we should be more engaged in a humanitarian help or other kinds of intervention, but much more direct and needed now and here. But then we realized that we really need to think about the change and about the situation in a long perspective. And our mission, so the mission of Autonomia is we struggle for every single girl and woman's safety and courage, so they can make their own decision freely, they can develop, they can join their efforts to change the shape of the world of policies together. And yes, this is what we still try to do. What was changed in the time of COVID, and now we are even much more focused on accessibility of our activities, our actions, and I will say more about that, and also about intersectionality. So we try, and in our empowerment work, this is very, very important for us to see people from minorities, women and girls, as experts on their own situation, on their own rights, on the solutions which will be helpful for them. So now, for example, we started a program with Ukrainian, Belarusian, and Russian activists and women generally, to create in Krakow a kind of safe and brave space where we can discuss, when we can meet together, when we can discuss what kind of challenges we face, when we can support each other, and when we can also try to cooperate and act collectively to influence our communities, our schools, workplaces, and policies. Because what we perceive as quite dangerous is isolation and polarization. So we try to build the space for all of us together. And we now cooperate also with Ukrainian organizations, and we have a kind of program focused on empowerment of, for example, of women, of volunteers in Ukraine. And we are going to organize here in Poland the training for anti-violence, anti-discrimination educators who came to Poland from Ukraine, not only Ukrainians. I try to not to use this term, which is strictly connected with nationality and citizenship. So we will create a space for people who came here from Ukraine, not only Ukrainian women. Because what is also important is that not only Ukrainian, all the refugees are not only Ukrainian mothers with kids. This group is quite diverse. And in time of COVID, we faced, or it was really clear for us that because of restrictions, a lot of women with disabilities and women who are using who are clients of social policies, they are completely isolated, and then we have quite a limited influence and possibilities to work with them. But we tried to engage some of women with different kinds of disabilities to create the possibilities and the program of workshops and different kinds of communication and influence for the time of COVID and isolation and being, closed in our houses or homes or flats.
Thank you. We have one more question about the group which is coming from Ukraine. So can we move a bit deeper, and can you please tell us what are the specific needs of women fleeing from Ukraine, and maybe also what are the gaps in the support?
What I can say on the base of information which I have, and they are from some reports, but they are also just directly from my work and from my, let's say, family life. Because me personally, I have 2 guests from Ukraine, and those were trans women. At my mother's flat, there are 2, there is a lesbian couple living. And if you are asking about needs, we need to realize who came to Poland, and that this group is quite diverse, and that not all solutions which will be helpful for women with kids are for all of the other people, and that we need to answer their needs, and their needs are the same. So safety, for example, the need of safety, the need of being quite economically independent. So we need sources of finances, but also we need to create a space where those people can be able to earn money by themselves. And we need spaces and ways to keep to allow them to use their own competences, their own knowledge, etc. So, for example, here in Poland, we have a lot of people from Ukraine who are teachers, who are psychologists, who are doctors, who are entrepreneurs, who are activists. And what is needed is not to lose this potential, but to create ways, to create spaces to use them for our own and for their better. To create to use them for all of us, let's say.
Thank you. I think that this is very important to see not only the needs, but also the potential of people who are coming to the country. Yeah, that people
actually this is a need.
you know,
this is a need. Their need to be to feel that they are not without a reason, that they can influence, that they can create the new situation, new world, new spaces in which they are.
What I also found interesting, which you are saying about the safety spaces, because I think that many organizations are like creating safety spaces for refugees. But you also said that it is a safe and brave space. And can you tell a bit about that? Like, what is behind the safe and brave space?
This is a broader discussion, but we can try to create safer, not safe spaces. But to create them, we need to be brave in this meaning that we need to talk about possible challenges, about violence, about our ways or mechanisms of reproducing oppression, and about our ignorance sometimes. And we need to open those kinds of discussions, and we need to create a space where we all can find solutions from for our communities to create better and safer spaces, and to create procedures which will be answering the situation which we have. And it's not enough just to write on the on the door, this is a safe space, because it's never safe. We cannot guarantee that this space is safe. We can take some efforts together to create this space as safer. But people with different expectations, different needs, and different experiences needs to be engaged in creating those solutions, which will be working on, which will be used for creating safer spaces. That's why I'm talking about the brave space. So this is a space where, and we sometimes we all can make mistakes, or we sometimes we don't know how to behave, what to do in some situations, and we need to be open to learn more, listen more, and yeah, that's the idea of brave spaces.
Okay, thank you. I remember that when we met before this meeting and we talked about how to prepare, you were saying that you are optimistic. That and I think that we are in the specific moment that basically the crisis started. It is already 3 months since the moment when the war started in Ukraine. So basically 3 months passed, and you said that you keep that you are basically optimistic. So my question is, what keeps you optimistic? Also, in regards that at the beginning, we could observe in Poland a huge solidarity movement with Ukrainians or with people who come from Ukraine, because as you said, not only Ukrainians came to Poland, like civil society, basically local authorities, Poles, we are responding to the crisis. But now the time passed, and what keeps you optimistic still? Also seeing that the motivation and engagement at the beginning is not as big as it used to be, in the same time that we clearly see that there is lack of these long-term systemic solutions.
Good question. But what makes me optimistic is quite long perspective. So for me, the situation is not isolated from longer and global processes. And I think that also that COVID and the war against Ukraine, they showed us very strongly that we are all in different kinds of dependency. And the situation influences all of us, and we need to try to look for new solutions. And those new solutions, in my opinion, need to be and will be and are actually created with the bigger and bigger engagement of women and people from minorities. And this is my optimism. So I'm not optimistic in short term, but in longer term. And I can see that much more people think about international relations, international, the situation on connected with climate change, the situation connected with health in much broader perspective, and also as I can see the process of emancipation of women, like 120 years ago, there was no law allowing women to be at the universities. And now we have women who are ministries of foreign affairs, ministries of education, of security, etc., etc. So I'm optimistic in a longer perspective. And what I am afraid of now is that there, in the situation of crisis, some people go back to much more traditional views of security, of gender roles, etc. But I believe that the power of women movement, of human rights movement, or of social, of civil movement is so strong now that we can influence the change of those policies. And I have a dream that that we will have one day the Ministry of Peace, not Ministry of Defense or not Ministry of War. If we want to have a peace, we need to have Ministry of Peace, and that we are much more ready now for this bigger change in our way of thinking about justice, security, and freedom. And actually, the situation in Poland was quite unexpected. So the reaction of civil society and every single person in Poland was unexpected, because after what was happening at the Belarusian border. So so maybe we even don't know how much of good energy and empathy is still in each of us, and that together we can create something completely new, better, much more just, and yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Agata. I think that we can keep continuing this discussion for hours. Thank you for your time. I'm very happy that we could talk about the situation in Poland and your work as well. Thank you for being with us, and in general for your job and for the work which basically your community is doing. This is very important. So thank you for that. Thank you as well for all the people who joined today to the meeting, to the session. We'll send you a follow-up email with a link to today's recording and also some highlights to also share with others. And we hope to see you next time on the next session in the next week. Welcome change. We'll have conversation about on how football soccer can shift norms on the European youth tax regulations. So thank you for that. Thank you for the meeting, and stay tuned.
Thank you very much.